In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the rear brake calipers on this Lexus IS. Located behind your rear wheels, let's get started. With the vehicle safely raised and supported, use a 21mm socket, remove all 5 lug nuts, and then pull the wheel off. As a note, if one of your lug nuts is the locking lug nut type with the little socket that fits right on it, do not use an impact tool on it. Break it free by hand before you lift the vehicle up, or it could snap the little splines on the tool. I don't have that on this wheel, so I'm just going to take all of them off with my socket and impact gun. If your wheel is stuck on, put a lug nut on it so that it doesn't fall off, and then from the back side, take a rubber mallet and tap the tire, not the wheel, and that should break it free. Remove the wheel. Let's start by removing all these springs that hold on the pads and lock in the 2 pins. So you can use some needle nose pliers or a little pry bar screwdriver to pop this out of the center of the pad, just like that. This will unlock this spring. Then you have to pull it out of the top pin, hold on to it, because otherwise it'll go flying, and pull it out of the bottom pin. Next we have this, which you have to pull out of the pads, but you can't remove it until you remove the lower pin, because as you can see, it loops around it. So let's get this pin out. You can do it a couple different ways. If yours isn't seasoned here, you should be able to grab it and gently pull it out. A lot of times though, rust and brake dust buildup will cause these to be stuck, in which case you can tap it from the backside with a punch and a hammer. However, it looks like mine is coming out pretty easily. Just give it twists back and forth, and there it is. Now you can remove this. And now nothing's holding on this upper pin, so let's remove this one as well. This one is a little bit more stuck, so I'm going to take a hammer and gently tap it. Now I'll use some larger pliers so I can get a better grip. Twist and pull. And there it is. There's nothing holding on the pads anymore, so they should just slide straight out. But what happens most of the time is the caliper still applies a little bit of pressure on the pads, and also they're going to be stuck top and bottom. So what I like to do is stick a screwdriver in here and compress the piston a little bit so that I can at least remove the pads without struggling. I'm going to use this little pry bar and just pry this in a little bit, and this should give me just the amount of space I need to free up the pads. There we go. You're gonna have to go back and forth on these. There's one. This one's quite stuck in here. That's most likely due to rust. And there it is. Now from the back side, you'll see 2 14mm headed bolts that hold the caliper and bracket assembly onto the knuckle. Let's remove both. With this one loosened up a little bit, let's do the top one while that one is still holding the caliper bracket in place. And lastly, really quick, while this is still mounted with that same 14mm socket, break free the banjo bolt that holds the hose onto the caliper, and then snug it up so it doesn't leak, but this will make it easier to remove later. And now finish removing the 2 bolts. All right, take this off and set it aside, making sure that it doesn't pull on the brake hose. One very important detail is to remove these little shims that are on the back of the original caliper bracket so we can install them on the new caliper, because these make sure that everything is spaced properly. We'll take the new caliper and press the shims on. Take the new caliper and slide it on the knuckle and try to line up the first bolt. Found that it's easier to start with the bottom and then the top. And now we'll snug these up, torque it, and then continue with the caliper replacement procedure. 48 foot-pounds is the torque for both of these bolts. Now let's remove this top slider pin with a 19mm socket so we can lubricate both the top and the bottom. Break it free and pull it out the rest of the way. Doing it this way makes it a whole lot easier because you have the bracket mounted, so you can more easily remove this. And once this top pin is out, which you can just push right out, the caliper swivels out and you should be able to slide it off the bottom pin. There we go. Now add some brake rated silicone paste to this lower pin. And what this means is that it's rated for high temperatures, which the brakes operate at. Make sure that you get some right in this groove up here where the boot seals up. Now slide the caliper back over. And when you slide it back over, you want to push it so that the boot goes up and over that lip, just like that. If there's any excess air stuck in there, just squeeze the boot while you push the caliper in. That should get it out. Now when it comes to the other slider pin boot, what we want to do is add some silicone paste inside here. Not too much, so I'm going to just kind of work it around into that fold. That's going to get either pushed out by the slider pin, or if you put it on the slider pin and then stick it in, it's going to get wiped off. So you really can't put too much, but as long as you make sure that it is properly lubricated, that's the goal right here, so it can slide smoothly back and forth for a long time. And speaking of the slider pin, if you want to put a very thin coating on it, go ahead, but once again, it's going to just get pushed out. So I'm going to slide it in to make sure that I didn't put too much silicone paste on here. There we go. We'll pull that boot. We'll wipe off any excess. I don't want it getting on the brakes by accident, but then we have to push it back flush so I can actually thread it on. Now close up the caliper again. We'll line up this top pin and start it in. And with the 19mm socket we used earlier, tighten this up. That's bottomed out. I'll give it a little bit extra and torque this to 18 foot-pounds. That's it. Make sure everything slides smoothly, which it does. So let's get the pads and the hardware on. The inner pad has a wear indicator that's going to go on the bottom, so slide that in. And then the outer pad. Get the top pin through the pad, through the caliper, and all the way through the other side. Before you put the lower pin in, make sure this spring is here, centered with the holes, so that you can put the pin right through the holes of the spring and through the other side. And then hook this in to the opening of the pads to lock it in. There we go. Lastly, we have the spring that locks in both of the pins that we just slid through. And this kind of works like a cotter pin. So you want to find the hole on the pin, slide that through, then find the hole on the bottom and slide that through. And then this hook has to go through this opening on the pad. I'm going to take some needle nose pliers, grab this, twist it, and stick it right in. All right, and that makes the pads completely installed. Now remove the new banjo bolt with the two new copper washers that are already attached to the caliper. We'll set those aside. There it is. Make sure these don't fall off. Now you want to take one off of the banjo bolt, but leave one on because it'll have to get installed right there anyway, so we'll just set all this aside. Now from the old caliper, we have to finish removing the banjo bolt, and this is why I broke it free earlier, so it can be easier for me to do it now. Remove it the rest of the way. Make sure you have a collection bucket to catch all the fluid because the caliper is full and the hose will leak. There we go, we'll let that drain. Inspect the hose and make sure you remove any old washers that are stuck on it. And now take the new banjo bolt with that one new copper washer, slide it through from the front side of the hose, so make sure that this little pin that curves over faces towards the end of the bolt, not the head of the bolt. Then on the other side, we'll put the other copper washer on. Then we'll flip it upright. The way this gets mounted on the caliper is with that hook up and into its groove right over here. This new banjo bolt is a 12mm in size, so we're just going to bottom it out, making sure that that hook stays secured on the caliper so that the hose can be properly seated. Bottom that out and snug it. Torque this bolt to 22 foot-pounds. All right, that's it right there. Rinse this with brake parts cleaner to make sure that we can detect any leaks. If there are any, there shouldn't be, but just in case, if it's already dry, you'll see a leak better than if it's already soaked in brake fluid. At the top of the caliper, you'll see where the bleeder screw is. Remove the cover and use a 10mm wrench to break this bleeder screw free. There we go. And now with a collection bucket underneath, we'll wait until fluid comes out of the bleeder screw and there are no more air bubbles popping up and out of here, and that means the air is gone out of this line and the caliper. That is called a gravity bleed, and that's basically because gravity is pulling fluid in and pushing it up and out. However, after this, even though this should take care of most, if not all, of the air that's in the system, you might want to do a full manual brake bleed, which you'll see how to do at the end of the video. But for now, let's wait for our gravity bleed. All right, we got a steady trickle of fluid here. There are no air bubbles coming out, so I'm going to close this off. Snug it. Don't go too tight on it. You don't want to strip it out or break it. We'll clean off any of the brake fluid that leaked down. Use some brake parts cleaner to rinse it. And once you have this all cleaned off and dried up, cap it off so that you don't get any debris inside the bleeder screw that'll clog it up. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and also in a cross pattern, torque them to 76 foot-pounds. "76 foot-pounds in a cross pattern, here we go. Double check them. Now don't forget to pump up the brake pedal, top off the master cylinder, and of course take it for a road test. Located on the driver's side of your engine compartment right by the firewall, you'll see your brake master cylinder. Use a rag or a paper towel just to remove any debris and dirt that is around the cap so that when we open it, nothing falls inside. This is the best I can do, and at this point I'm going to remove the cap. Carefully, not to drop anything in there. Looking at the cap, you can see that it says to only use .3 brake fluid, so that's exactly what we're going to use. Before I start though, I will remove all of the old brake fluid from the master cylinder. To do that, there's actually a little screen in here that you'll have to turn and twist so you can get it out. We'll set that on a rag. Now using a small hose with a vacuum pump or a fluid transfer pump, anything you have that'll remove fluid from this reservoir, use it and take out as much as you can. This master cylinder has a bunch of little compartments in here. I did my best to get all the fluid out. You'll never get 100% of it out, but at this point it's empty, so let's fill it up with some fresh .3 brake fluid. Just as a precaution though, before I do that, I'm going to place this screen back in here, turn it clockwise until it seats all the way down. The fill line for this master cylinder is this right here, so we'll fill it up to that line. That's it right there. Let's cap it off. The bleeding sequence on this vehicle will start at the right rear wheel, that's the passenger side rear, then move over to the left rear, then we're going to top off the master cylinder, then move over to the right front and bleed that caliper, and finish up with the left front. After all of this, if you think you still need to bleed because there's air in the system and the pedal doesn't feel nice and firm, bleed again in the same sequence, making sure to top off the master cylinder every other caliper. We are at the right rear wheel, and I have an assistant inside the vehicle that's ready to pump up the brakes and then hold the pedal to keep pressure in the system. I'm going to remove this bleeder screw cap, and then with a 10mm wrench, I will open it up. Have a collection bucket underneath to catch the fluid. I recommend having some sort of a hose that can go over the bleeder screw. That'll make a lot less of a mess. You can go ahead and pump now.
Holding.
All right, they're holding pressure, so I'm gonna open this up.
Floor.
All right, I reached the floor. Go again. We're gonna do this until we see no more air bubbles coming out of this bleeder screw.
Holding.
Okay.
Floor.
All right, let's go again.
Holding. Floor.
Okay, go again. Although there are no air bubbles coming out, I see very dark fluid here, so I'm gonna go until it clears up a little bit.
Holding. Floor.
Looking better. Let's do it one more time.
Holding. Floor.
Okay, you can let go now. Fluid has cleared up. I'm going to remove my hose, wipe off any brake fluid that may have spilt, use brake parts cleaner if needed, and then cap it off. That way it doesn't get clogged up. Now let's move over to the left rear caliper and do the same thing. It's time to top off the master cylinder, so remove the cap, fill it up until it's full, and then cap it back off so it can stay sealed up. I've topped off the master cylinder, it's now full again, and we are at the right front caliper, ready to bleed. We're gonna do the same exact thing. My assistant will go ahead and pump.
Holding.
All right, holding pressure. So I'm gonna open the bleeder screw.
Floor.
All right, go again.
Holding. Floor.
And again. Once again, no bubbles, but this is very dark, so we'll do it a few times.
Holding. Floor.
Okay, one last time.
Holding. Floor.
Okay, you can let go now. This has definitely cleared up, so we're gonna remove this. I'm gonna wipe everything down. Unfortunately, this one for me did not have a little cap on the bleeder screw, so I'm gonna leave it as is. We're gonna move over to the left front now and do the same thing. That'll be our last caliper. Top off the master cylinder one last time, take the cap off, fill it up to the max line, and put the cap back on. Now you can put the wheels on, torque them to 76 foot-pounds, and take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.